Can men understand women?
Yes, men, it is possible to understand women. To understand, we need to go back to Genesis.
To creation of man and woman.
Genesis 2:18 NKJV. 18 And the Lord God said, It is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper comparable to him.
So woman is man's helper. That is what God created her to be. Now the question is, what is the meaning of helper? In Genesis, the Hebrew word for helper, Aziza, often translated as helpmeet or helper in English ... in Genesis 2:18. The phrase "izeda kenegdo" is used, which translates to a helper suitable for him or a helper corresponding to him.
Izeda itself is a noun meaning aid, help, assistance. It's used to describe God as a helper in various contexts. But in Genesis, it's used to describe the woman as a helper for Adam. The addition of kenegdo, meaning corresponding to him or like him, emphasizes the woman's role as a partner and companion, not just a subordinate assistant.
Some interpretations of izeda in Genesis 2:18 suggest that the woman is more than a simple helper. She is an ally, a partner, and a companion who can assist Adam in a way that no other creature can. The word izeda can also have military connotations, implying a helper who is strong and capable of defending or protecting. Interesting connection to helper, implying a helper who is strong and capable of defending or protecting. So the women as helper got a war connection. God knew man would need a woman to help him in the coming war.
Now that we know why God created the women, let's look at what happened in the garden.
Genesis 3:1 NKJV. 1 Now the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, Has God indeed said, You shall not eat of every tree of the garden? Genesis 3:2 NKJV. 2 And the woman said to the serpent, We may eat the fruit of the trees of the garden. Genesis 3:3 NKJV. 3 But of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, You shall not eat it, nor shall you touch it, lest you die. Genesis 3:4 NKJV. 4 Then the serpent said to the woman, You will not surely die. Genesis 3:5 NKJV. 5 For God knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. Genesis 3:6 NKJV. 6 So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree desirable to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. She also gave to her husband with her, and he ate. Genesis 3:7 NKJV. 7 Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves coverings. So they lost their covering from God. They are now naked in every sense, meaning God's perfect protection is gone. Questions to answer about what just happened to Adam and Eve. Why did the serpent only speak to Eve? Why didn't the serpent approach Adam? Did the snake know something about Eve and Adam on how they see things?
We'll leave the questions for you to answer. So let's go on with what happened in the garden.
Genesis 3:12 NKJV. 12 Then the man said, The woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I ate. Genesis 3:13 NKJV. 13 And the Lord God said to the woman, What is this you have done? The woman said, The serpent deceived me, and I ate.
Now to understand more on how man and women are created differently by God, let's take a look at the punishment that God dealt out on Adam and Eve.
Genesis 3:14 NKJV. 14 So the Lord God said to the serpent, Because you have done this, you are cursed more than all cattle, and more than every beast of the field. On your belly you shall go, and you shall eat dust all the days of your life. This is the curse on the serpent. Genesis 3:15 NKJV. 15 And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel.
And I will put enmity between you and the women. Let's explore what is being said here by God, and what does that mean?
Let's look at the meaning of the word enmity.
In the Bible, Enmity signifies a deep-seated state of hostility, antagonism, or ill will, often between individuals or groups, and particularly between humanity and God. It describes a condition of being an enemy, the opposite of friendship, and a state of being opposed. Let's look at other translations and see what they translated the word enmity as. Genesis 3:15 NLT 15, and I will cause hostility between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He will strike your head, and you will strike his heel. Genesis 3:15 GNT 15, I will make you and the woman hate each other. Her offspring and yours will always be enemies. Her offspring will crush your head, and you will bite her offspring's heel. Genesis 3:14-15 MSG 15, I am declaring war between you and the woman, between your offspring and hers. He'll wound your head, you will wound his heel.
Message Bible translation of enmity is war. So the serpent, which is the devil, and the woman, is at war according to these texts.
Now I have questions here. Why is only the women and the serpent named here? Why didn't God say that there is a war between Adam and the serpent?
Now I know what everyone says, that in verse 15 God says, I will put enmity between you and the women, between your seed and her seed.
And that is where war between man and the serpent comes in, is that correct understanding of what is said by God.
Genesis 3:15 in KJV 15, and I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel.
Between your seed and the seed of the women. But women don't have seed. The man is the one that has seed. So is God here talking about the virgin birth of Jesus.
Genesis 3:16 and KJV 16, to the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your sorrow, and your conception in pain you shall bring forth children. Your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you.
So what we learn so far, the women was created differently, out of the rib bone of Adam. The women was the one who the serpent was talking to. The women saw that the tree's fruit was good for food, and being desired to make wise.
The women and the serpent was declared enemies by God. The women will have pain in birth. Her desire shall be for her man, and he shall rule over her. Now let's look at what God says to Adam. Genesis 3:17 in KJV 17, then to Adam he said, because you have heeded the voice of your wife, and have eaten from the tree of which I commanded you, saying, you shall not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for your sake. In toil you shall eat of it all the days of your life.
Heeded the voice of your wife.
What does God say there to Adam? Let's see other translations. Genesis 3:17 NIV 17, to Adam he said, because you listened to your wife and ate fruit from the tree about which I commanded you, you must not eat from it. Cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil you will eat food from it all the days of your life. Genesis 3:17 NLT 17, and to the man he said, since you listened to your wife and ate from the tree whose fruit I commanded you not to eat, the ground is cursed because of you. All your life you will struggle to scratch a living from it.
So God says to Adam, because you listened to your wife and ate of the fruit, the earth will not produce for you.
Now let's explore this. Adam ate of the forbidden fruit after Eve convinced him to see the fruit as desirable, so that show you Adam's vision had to be changed to see differently. Why?
So God created men and women to see life differently from the start, and there is the difference that we need to explore more.
So through what lens do women see life, is the question. In verse 15, God says to the serpent, I will put enmity between you and the women. That is the lens. The woman is at war, and she sees everything through that lens. Psychological warfare is what we would call the war between women and the serpent. Psychological warfare is the use of propaganda and other psychological tactics to influence the thinking, emotions, and behavior of an opponent, often during times of conflict or geopolitical unrest. Its goal is to demoralize the enemy, undermine their resolve, and potentially persuade them to take actions favorable to the aggressor.
and potentially persuade them to take actions favorable to the aggressor.
Isn't that what the serpent did to Eve before she took and ate the fruit?
According to the definition of psychological warfare, that is exactly what the serpent did to Eve and, according to Genesis 3:15, is still doing to women today. But the enmity or war is between the serpent and the women, meaning both the women and the serpent can attack each other with psychological warfare. Does God say to the Adam that there is enmity between him and the serpent?
No, God does not say that. That means the woman is the one seeing the attack, plans of the serpent or devil, and the women is the one that can show the devil God's plan.
God says to Adam, because you listened to your wife, that shows Adam was not deceived by the serpent. Adam could not see the way Eve was. Able to see the fruit that shows Adam sees differently than Eve is able to.
Adam sees God's plan even after the fall. These words are spoken by God. Shows that Adam still could see God's plan for man after the fall.
Genesis 3:17 NLT 17. And to the man he said, since you listened to your wife and ate from the tree whose fruit I commanded you not to eat. So to recap, Eve is created differently from Adam and she sees differently from Adam. Why is this important for men to understand? It's important because the woman is in a psychological warfare with the serpent and men are not. Now let's put ourselves in the shoes of a person affected by warfare. Question, would you want to be alone? Or would you want as many people with you in this war?
Question, would you want as much resources as possible to fight the war? Would you be trusting of all people? Would you always be looking for the best commander to lead you into help you defeat your enemies?
Would you want your commander to listen and take in the conditions of the battlefield to give you better directions on how to defeat your enemies? Do you want a strong and decisive commander that believes in his plan for you to defeat your enemies? Would you want your commander to communicate the broader battlefield to you because he sees a different picture of the battlefield than you?
This is just some of the questions you can ask yourself, and in answer them, you will get a clearer picture of what women see, what they need, and how they think.
Here is one question for me which I can answer now after this knowledge. The question was, why can't women in general not let a man sit and do nothing for a little time? It's not all women, but there is quite a number that wants men to just do something all the time. You know those women that are always looking for stuff to do for the man, and if you understand she is always in warfare and always needs resources, then you can understand when she sees a man doing nothing she gets anxious. And she gets anxious because as her commander you didn't do your job to explain the vision clearly so she can see it and believe in it. This is it for this video. We will explore more in the next video. Until then, men, ask yourself what you would do on front lines of war. Then recognize that women are on front lines of spiritual warfare, and we as men are the commanders that do planning and bring resources to frontline.